And actually, I want to bring the club in to be more involved in that, actually in a cleanup or something like that. So I wanted to bring you aboard to to talk to us, to let us know what we can do to help out and what projects you guys are working on. Or
Sure. Well, first of all, I appreciate you giving me the ability to speak to you, everyone, about what's going on. It's a difficult situation a lot of the times to be able to stay informed constantly and to know where your highest level of impact might be. And so I appreciate that opportunity. Captain's Drinking Water right now, we're very much in a holding pattern. We got, I'm sure you guys have seen on Facebook and some of our postings that we've made some major progress the last 4 years. Just recently, Governor DeSantis approved into law the $352 million for a commitment to Everglades restoration for 2021, which is huge. It's the most money that's ever been allotted to Everglades restoration on an annual basis by any governor ever, including all the original governors from 2000 when CERC was originally approved. So that's big news. On top of that, President Trump authorized $250 million in federal cost share to accompany that 352. So next year is going to be a big year for Everglades restoration. That was not easy. We started that fight in 2016. If you were paying attention, we got SB 10 approved in the state. It passed the Senate. It got made into law. Then we had this big battle with the Army Corps of Engineers over permitting and the South Florida Water Management District. We got that approved. We won those battles. And then we went to DC to get approval for allocation of those funds into the WRDA bill, which was the overall water planning bill for the entire country. And we were able to get that approved last year. So this has been a gradual ladder of steps that we've made to finally get to the point where we're going to be next year. The setback that we just saw, I don't know if anybody saw that, but the Army Corps of Engineers, all this funding is for the reservoir, which is supposed to be south of Lake Okeechobee. It's a major component to the Central Everglades Restoration Plan. It's not the answer. It's not the silver bullet. There is none. There's 68 projects online that have to come into fruition for us to see some major changes. But the biggest project, the one with the most impact, is the reservoir. And so it was on the docket for the Army Corps of Engineers for several years. They've had all the engineering for several years. And just this year, literally 2 months ago, they decided that they'd have to look at it as a new project based on new circumstances. And that set us back some time. Yeah. So we're currently in that fight right now, but generally right now we're in a holding pattern. We really can't do much there. We're influencing as many people as we can, lobbying as many people as we can. The good news, the difference today versus 5 years ago is that every senator, every congressman knows how important this is. We put it on their radar. It's number one in a lot of cases. They know who we are by face, by name. And when we come to talk to them, they know that we're not blowing smoke. We understand what's going on, and if they don't do what they say they're going to do, we're going to hold them accountable. So right now we're in a really good position for next year to be a big year for Everglades restoration, and that's good news. I mean, if anybody's fished in the park recently, they know that there's a lot of snook and redfish in the park. The fishing has been fantastic. The water looks cleaner than it's been in years. Fortunately, that's Mother Nature taking care of herself, and she's already in an upswing to basically rejuvenating herself. And so, if we could help her a little bit, then we might see, summers like this every year. And so, that's the good news. And right now, whenever I've seen good news, I fully expect there to be a bad news coming. And so we're just kind of preparing ourselves for that to happen.
Benny, let me ask you something. On the reservoir, we had some people over. Who did we have, Herman?
Bull Sugar.
Bull Sugar.
Well, we had Bull Sugar, but we also had the water keepers, if you remember. Water keepers. And Bull Sugar joined with another group, Save Our Everglades, I think, right?
Friends of the Everglades. It's
Friends of the Everglades.
Yeah,
right.
Marjorie
You work
Stoneman
with
Douglas Foundation. Yes, I work with all of them.
Yeah, of course.
If you've seen my show at all, you've seen that one of the things I've tried to do, among many others, is to work with all of these groups, in essence, to bring them all together. They all are fighting. We are all fighting for the same thing. And there's another, and that's the cool thing about what's going on, is that everybody wants the same thing. The unfortunate thing is that there are several users of the Everglades National Park, or the Everglades, and some of the groups think that other groups don't want the same thing, and that's not the case. For just as an example, the groups north of the lake, their slogan is "slow the flow," because they understand that slowing the water into the lake will solve their problems, and they're not wrong. They're right. I'm from Florida Bay, and I want to send water south. And so when I say send water south, they think I'm saying the opposite of what they're saying. And so there's still a lot of disconnection between all the groups. But what I'm trying to do with the organizations who are fighting, like the Waterkeepers, Friends of the Everglades, Bull Sugar, Captures Clean Water, BTT, Everglades Foundation, everyone who's on the front lines, is to bring them together. Because when we work together, we get a lot of stuff done very quickly and effectively.
Right. But one thing that they were talking about, the reservoir, which I know it's good to have, but one setback they were saying is that they're thinking of making it like a deep rock pit, and it won't filter the water.
Yes, there's a couple. One is that they're not wrong in saying that that's one of the proposals. That'll never happen. Mainly because we're engaged and we don't want to let that happen. In order for that reservoir to be effective, it's got to be shallow. It's got to have the appropriate STAs. It's got to be able to treat that water. Otherwise, we're doing damage to the park. That'll never happen. The South Florida Water Management District is operated and managed by a group of real water advocates for the first time ever. There is no sugar infiltration there. They'll never allow bad water into Everglades National Park. So, not to mention there are a bunch of safeguards in place. So that's not going to happen. And we're not going to allow them to spend $1 billion to build a reservoir that's not going to be effective. That's counterintuitive. That's exactly what sugar wants us to do. So I understand what Bull Sugar's, one of their tactics is, and I love these guys, but one of their tactics is to spread information about what's the worst possible thing that can happen, so that people will get engaged. And so by telling you that they want to build a very deep reservoir, they're engaging you. You're upset about it, and you want to know more about it, which is great, right? But the reality is we'll never let that happen. It's got to be shallow. It's got to have the right STAs. And if it doesn't, we won't allow them to start building it. It's just that simple. There's too many of us engaged now.
How many square miles is that supposed to be, the reservoir?
It's the size of it was reduced from what we really need. The size was, and then later bills from last year, they were going to bring it down to an unhelpful small size. Is that not right, Benny?
That
How
is
many
true.
square miles?
It's not unhelpful. The original size was to be over 60,000 acres, and right now what we have approved is 30,000 acres. The South Florida Water Management District is actually in the process right now of buying more land and allocating more state-owned land so that we can put more STAs on that land and leave that 30,000 for just the reservoir. So part of the process with the federal government, if any of you have been involved in the feds, is that you have to get past certain stages in order to even start negotiating or start to get things done. That's what we've done. The reservoir's approved. We have the funding coming. We have the permits coming. What we have to do now is fight to make it larger, to make it more effective, to make it work for the Everglades National Park now better. And so our jobs never end. And that's kind of where I'm going with the story, is that, and what you guys can do now is to stay engaged with what's going on with Captures Clean Water, and Bull Sugar, and Friends of the Everglades. If you're not members, you can get on the newsletter. You can read about what's going on. Every month they send us, every one of those organizations sends out a newsletter to tell you exactly where we are. In a lot of cases, there'll be a call to action. You'll see me post it on my Facebook. I'll post it on my Instagram. It'll be an email that you can usually send. It's usually to get past a certain milestone. And the reason I bring that up is, as we're going through this permit process and this engineering process for the reservoir, there's going to be quite a few of those. Again, we can't allow.
Whoops.
We lost him. Hold on. Benny, we lost you.
Benny, we lost you.
It's a great smile, though.
Right. He's probably trying to get back on right now.
Yeah, it's just blank there.
Listen, I'm going to offer up the club. I think that one thing is it's important that he has localized meetings with a bunch of people, and I'm going to offer up the club for him to do that.
Good idea.
So we'll see what happens. He probably is going to call back in, hopefully.
As a duck hunter, I know the SDAs they've built are incredibly effective. I mean, not only for ducks, but they're cleaning a lot of water. They're
That
not
one
deep.
off of 27, that's SDA, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's one off of 27. There's another
There
one
you go.
Is that the
Welcome
one?
back.
halfway to
Hey guys, sorry about that.
Miccosukee.
That's okay. Well, Benny, do you guys get him? You know, I would like to offer up the club. I think we can fit like how many guys in there? Like 30?
Yeah.
Easily.
That you guys can have localized meetings with, you know, I think with people in the clubhouse if you would like.
Sure.
I would definitely like to have the club use it as a tool to get to, you know, people local. I don't know if you're finding that successful or if that's a tool that you guys can use. I would like to offer up the club to do that.
I appreciate that. Yes, that's a very effective tool. We don't do a lot of localized meetings anymore because you know, our funding, especially after COVID, has been very limited, and so we have to spend every dime that we have to, you know, for those meetings we have in Tallahassee and in Palm Beach and DC, and I mean, everything that I've done this year I've done on my own dime because of that. So as we do those localized meetings, for sure I'll reach out to you, and as things become necessary to get approved or what have you, I will definitely make sure you get it so that you can spread it to the club. And if there's ever a situation where we have to bring something here to Miami, then I'll include you. And if it makes sense coming to the club or makes sense you guys coming to us, then I'll let you know what that is.
Yeah, and you'll get a free hamburger too. We make some good food there, buddy.
I appreciate that.
Any questions, guys, at all? Or I just went fishing in Flamingo, and I used to go there. I haven't gone there, to be honest with you, like 5 years, because I just didn't want to see it like I was told the way it was. So when I used to go before, it was clean water, and I used to just destroy the reds on the flats and everything. And when I went the other day with Herman, it was exactly like I remember, and I cherish it to be. So, I mean, hats off to you guys for really putting up a fight. Let me ask you something. Have you guys ever thought of putting oyster beds in the Flamingo area to try to clean up the water, or put as an option?
Well, oysters, you know, they occur naturally. They need a certain balance with salt and fresh water. And the problem with Florida Bay is that the balance really has never been there.
Right.
The oysters that were there at one point, I'm sure you remember the big oyster bar on Bradley, and there was an oyster bar on Clive for a minute, but they were very seasonal. They would come in, and then they'd be good, and then they would be just shut out for a little while. Then they'd be. I don't know if that was just a product of just that time period, because it wasn't that long ago that I was a kid out there. I mean, this is my 22nd year guiding. 30 years ago, I was a kid out there. But we've never had a balance enough in Florida Bay to have any kind of, you know, recurring oyster growth.
Well, Florida,
that being said,
hypersalinity, right? I mean, they had the hypersalinity because they had the algae bloom and everything.
That's right. So I was in Apalachicola Bay last year to highlight the issues they're having there with their oysters. And I don't know if you know about Apalachicola, but prior to, I don't know, 10 years ago, Apalachicola was the #1 producer of oysters for the planet. And because they've had restricted freshwater flows from Georgia down the Apalachicola River. The balance isn't there, and so because the balance isn't there, they lost all of their oysters. So one thing we can definitely count on in Florida Bay is we will not have that balance until all of the restoration projects are done with Everglades restoration at all. And even then, we may not have enough balance to actually have oysters. So, I mean, that's a great idea. I mean, it's a natural occurring situation that cleans water, but oysters will never survive in Florida Bay. The last salinity reading I got last week was 37 parts per thousand, which is still saltier than seawater, even though we've had all this rain. So we need a long-term freshwater flow situation in Florida Bay for it to ever to have balance again.
Yeah, that's shocking, because when we were driving down, we were looking left and right, and you could see water everywhere.
Right.
And you think, wow, that's good, And I didn't go up into Snake Bite. There were so many boats in there, but I didn't know if the water was tannic up in there. I've seen the water.
It is tannic in Garfield and Rankin and Santini a little bit, but that's so what happens this time of year. And I'm sure you experienced it the other day. It's so hot and there was so little wind that what happens is that water comes into Florida Bay. The salt water and the fresh water does start to churn but what happens is that heat causes evaporation, and we lose that fresh water. That's why Florida Bay is so hypersaline all the time, because of the heat and the amount of evaporation that we have. It far exceeds the amount of fresh water that we get, and so that's why we are in constant state of hypersalinity.
Wow, I never heard that as an issue. You guys have any other questions for him?
I've got a question for you. I went out on the trail today, and over by the Miccosukee, they had 3 of the 4 pumps running. And I got out to L67, and they had that wide open. Man, they were pushing so much water in there under those bridges. But that comes down in Turner Slough and probably into Madeira Bay rather than down in front of Flamingo itself. Is that true?
No, not necessarily. And I will say that all of those pumps are open because we've been beating that drum for 4 years now so hard that they're so tired of hearing it that they just turn it on. That's the good news. The bad news is that so when that water goes into Shark River Valley Slough and Taylor Slough, it's as it's supposed to go. There's so many ways for that water to go right now. Okay. And we lose a lot of water into Miami, believe it or not. And that's why you'll see, I don't know if any of you fish Biscayne Bay, but the west side of Biscayne is almost completely fresh water right now. A lot. Also, what'll happen is there's an overflow canal south near Card Sound that will also dump off a lot of fresh water. And so, because we've created all these canal systems and all this access for water, the water can also get out in a lot of places. That's one of the things that's being addressed with Everglades restoration. There's all kinds of projects that have to get done in order for that water to go exactly where we want it to go. So it's good news that we're getting more fresh water. And that's exactly why those fish are thriving in snakebite right now and all over Florida Bay. That's exactly why we have snook and redfish. But it also opens our eyes to some other problems that have to be addressed with Everglades restoration.
Manny, what are those, when you're driving down before you get to the park on your left, it looks like I see some areas like canals where they built these dikes to run water. Is that part of the? Yeah,
those are STAs. That's part of the STA program. So each one of those canals has a different foliage in it. And each one of those specific foliage extracts a certain chemical out of the water. One plant extracts, the nitrates, and one extracts the phosphates, and it's over. I mean, it sounds really easy, but it's over a long period of time. But those STAs, those canal systems, actually work. We've been using them for decades already, and they've become extremely efficient. And it's part of the project. One of the projects from Everglades Restoration that's meant to treat water that comes out of the farms and homestead. That's the good news. The bad news is that those STAs really didn't need to get done now, because the farmers and homestead actually do a really good job with treating their water. They farm their water very, very well. And that money could have been spent for STAs that we really need right now. But regardless, they're working. They are treating water. The water that's coming from Homestead in Miami going into the park is actually very clean. It's cleaner than some of the water that's coming from north. So that's the good news. But that's exactly what it is. It's part of the STA plan.
I'm really impressed with I go and fish from Jupiter a lot for the snook and the surf. Now, that water that's not being pumped out of through Stewart, it's really made a difference too. There's water.
There's no doubt. I mean, the reason that we are all screaming for everybody's restoration is because it doesn't just fix Florida Bay. It does 8 of the top estuaries in the state of Florida, including all those estuaries on the East Coast that, millions of people fish every single year. And people buy homes on that water, and people come here on vacation to go visit that water. And so now because we've attacked this on so many levels, we're affecting positively those fisheries. And so the fishery on the East Coast is fantastic. Our funding options and our ability to collect donations this year has been extremely inhibited.
We also have,
I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate your support.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, this is definitely a team effort. I mean, we've seen progress in the last few years, especially this year, and it's really because everyone is getting involved. And so to have clubs like you guys, to have your support financially and your support with emails and online, that's huge. I mean, that's how we're making progress. I mean, we truly are rewriting history right now, and it's because people like you are getting involved.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Benny. And look out for those emails, okay?
I will. My pleasure, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks
You
a
too,
lot.
man.